7 incredible stories of surpassing extreme prison sentences. When considering a life sentence, the common assumption is that a criminal will spend the remainders of their life behind bars. However, this is not always the case. There are instances where individuals outlive their incarceration and must reacclimate to a vastly different world from the one they were accustomed to. At number 1, Joseph Ligon, widely recognized as America's longest-serving prisoner, received a life sentence for a crime he committed as a minor at the tender age of 15. On February 20, 1953, in Philadelphia, Ligon found himself in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was in the company of a group of teenagers who committed a series of robberies to obtain alcohol, resulting in multiple fatalities. Ligon's case was marred by significant flaws from the outset. Despite being a minor, he was denied legal representation and family visits. Furthermore, the police coerced confessions from the defendants, including Ligon, even though he had not taken anyone's life. Regardless, he and his co-defendants were convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Ligon tirelessly fought his case for many years alongside his attorney, Bradley Bridge. Bridge noted that if the case were tried today, Ligon would likely have received a sentence of only 5 to 10 years, underscoring the flaws in the legal system at that time. In 2012, the U.S. Supreme Court mandated that all juvenile lifers be resentenced following the Miller v. Alabama ruling. The subsequent year, Ligon was resentenced to 35 years, enabling him to apply for parole due to time served. However, he refused parole because he desired full control over his case. Ligon spent nearly 7 decades in prison, entering at 15 and re-entering a world he scarcely recognized at the age of 83 on February 11, 2021. When asked by CBS News' Michelle Miller what's the first thing he did as a free man was, he responded with a beaming smile, saying, "I broke down with a big smile on my face. A free man, free at last." Moving on to the second case, let's discuss Charles Edred Ford. Ford's conviction stands as one of the numerous tragic examples of wrongful prosecution and racial profiling. He initially received a life sentence for first-degree conviction in 1952, despite his absence from the crime scene. Subsequently, in 1975, he faced another charge of second-degree assault while in a prison for low. The alleged victim claimed to have seen a man near a red Ford Pinto, a vehicle registered under Ford's name. However, Ford was innocent in both the 1952 and 1975 trials. Remarkably, in both trials, the entire jury and the presiding judge were of the same white racial background. Furthermore, little compelling evidence was presented to establish his guilt, and Ford was not even permitted to call witness to testify on his behalf, confirming his absence from the scene. It wasn't until 2016 that the 1952 conviction was finally reopened, thanks to Judge Helen Harrington, who discovered that Ford's lawyer had failed to file an appeal to review his sentence and that the original judge had neglected to inform Ford of his post-trial rights. This revelation led to the case being dismissed. In the 1975 case, Judge West sentenced Ford to 5 years and 2 years of unsupervised probation, and it was in that courtroom that Ford openly wept upon realizing that he was finally gaining the freedom he had long deserved. Ford's life unfolded with a total of 64 years behind bars. Beginning at the age of 19, his release came on March 23, 2016, when he was 84 years old. It was later revealed that the actual perpetrator, Jake Robinson, had confessed, and thorough court review found no evidence connecting Ford to the crimes. Sadly, shortly after his release, Ford was diagnosed with an aggressive form of lung cancer. Despite his newfound freedom, he spent the last months of his life surviving on the kindness of others and donations, which also covered his funeral expenses. Ford never received any compensation for his wrongful conviction and the 3 decades he spent on death row. Such story serves as a stark reminder of the continued existence of racism, challenging those who deny its reality. Number 3. Johnson Grigsby. Johnson Grigsby didn't just survive his prison sentence, He even went back to prison after serving out his sentence. He was sentenced to life in prison for ending a man's life while they were having a drink and getting into a fight. He was a model prisoner and kept to his own rules. But his parole was denied 33 times before he was finally released in 1974. He was 89 at that time of his release, so it was a big chance for him in society. He hadn't been part for almost 70 years. He couldn't handle the sudden change in his job, so he went back to prison for 17 months before he was released again. He was 91 when he was released and stayed at Marion County Healthcare Center, where he found solace in the routines that were similar to the prison life he had grown accustomed to. He passed away in 1987 at the age of 101. At number 4, at the young age of 20, Richard Honeck found himself arrested in Chicago in September of 1899 alongside his friend Herman Houndhausen. Their target was Walter Kohler, a former school teacher who they sought revenge against because they had previously testified against them in a case where they were accused of setting multiple fires in their hometown of Hernan, Missouri. Throughout his time in prison, Honeck maintained a relatively clean record, aside from an earlier incident where he assaulted a warden during his first year at Gillette Prison. He was later transferred to Southern Illinois Penitentiary, where he worked in prison bakery for 35 years. Astonishingly, after spending 64 years behind bars, Honeck was finally released on December 20, 1963, with the help of his niece, Ciara Orth, who intervened on his behalf. In 1963, Chicago Tribune article described how Honeck was visibly amazed by the significant changing in the world during his incarceration. His niece had to make personal sacrifices to care for him, selling her one-bedroom trailer home to purchase a two-bedroom one in Oregon due to his declining health. Eventually, Honeck had to be admitted to Roseburg Nursing Home in 1971, where he spent the last 5 years of his life. He passed away in December 1976 at the age of 97. Richard Honeck gained notoriety as the first prisoner to capture widespread media attention solely due to the incredible long duration of his imprisonment, although his record has since been surpassed by numerous other cases. Number 5. Francis Smith. Francis Smith had a troubled history with the law from a very young age. He was sent to the Cheshire Reformatory for male youths at the age of 13 after assaulting a guard and managing to escape. As he grew older, Smith became involved with a group that committed minor crimes throughout southern Connecticut. However, a significant turning point occurred in 1949 when Smith was imprisoned for his role in the killing of a night watchman in Greenwich. He was 24 at that time. During his lengthy incarceration, Smith managed to escape one from prison farm in Enfield in 1967, triggering a 12-day manhunt. He also had a brief period on parole before returning to prison in 1975. On June 7, 1954, the day Smith was scheduled for execution, the lead investigator in the case, Leo Carroll, made a surprising announcement during a last-minute hearing. Carroll testified that it was uncertain whether Smith was actually present at the crime scene. Just 2 hours before Smith's scheduled execution, his sentence was modified. Another breakthrough in Smith's case came when the key witness in the crime admitted to lying in order to avoid the death penalty. George Loden, who had initially agreed to testify that Smith was the second shooter, later recanted his statement on the witness stand, alleging that the police had coerced him in lying. This revelation led to Smith's release from prison in September of 2020 after serving 71 years. At the age of 96, Smith is currently residing in a nursing home near Hartford, Connecticut. Paul Geidel Jr., the sixth individual on our list, also hailing from Connecticut, had a challenging start in life. Orphaned at the tender age of 7, he dropped out of school when he was just 14. Given that manual labor didn't suit him, he found work as a bellhop in Hartford, New York. On July 26, 1911, Geidel targeted a guest at the Iroquois Hotel, believing the man to be a wealthy broker. Sneaking into William Jackson's room, he took Jackson's life and left with just enough money to purchase a suit. Within 2 days, Geidel was apprehended, tried and convicted of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to serve 20 years to life in prison, which led him to Sing Sing Correctional Facility in New York. In 1919, during his 8th year in prison, Geidel experienced a breakdown that resulted in his transfer to the lunacy ward at Dannemora, where he spent 7 years. Afterward, he was moved back to the general prison population. Eventually, he found himself in a unit for elderly inmates, which resembled a dormitory more than a traditional prison, at Fishkill Correctional Facility. In August of 1974, Geidel was granted parole, but the 80-year-old man chose to remain in prison, possibly because it was the only life he had known after spending 63 years behind bars. He stayed incarcerated for nearly 6 more years until May 7, 1980. At that point, he left Fishkill having served the longest prison sentence in American history, a feat that even earned him a place in the Guinness Book of World Records. He spent the remaining years of his life in a nursing home in Dutchess County, passing away at the age of 93. And lastly, at number 7, John Phillips faced legal trouble in 1952 when he was convicted of sexually assaulting a 5-year-old girl in North Carolina. At that time, he was just 18 years old and in the 9th grade. Consequently, he was sent for evaluation at the state mental hospital designated for black individuals. The assessment reported that Phillips had the cognitive abilities of a 7-year and 7-month-old child. To avoid facing the death penalty, his lawyer entered a guilty plea, but the judge sentenced him to life in prison. Despite his guilty plea, Phillips has consistently maintained his innocence. Unfortunately, the loss of medical and court records has made it challenging to substantiate his claims of innocence. Research into wrongful conviction has revealed that intellectually disabled defendants are particularly susceptible to making false confession. Phillips was subsequently incarcerated at the state penitentiary in Raleigh and was moved around various facilities over the decades, spending a significant portion of his sentence in a minimum security prison camps. In 1989, he arrived at Durham Correctional Center. As the years went by, Phillips became accustomed to the routines of prison life, and he lost the desire to leave confinement. In 1991, a Durham newspaper published an article about him, highlighting his status as the longest-serving inmate in the state. This article came to the attention of his remaining family, leading to their reunion. The recognition also prompted top prison officials to visit Durham Prison, concerned about potential lawsuits and eager to secure his release. However, Phillips, for his part, was reluctant to leave. According to the North Carolina Department of Public Safety, he was finally released on parole on March 9, 2021. Having spent a total of 68 years behind bars. His parole period is set to conclude on March 2026. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please don't forget to hit the like button and share it with your friends. If you want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. We appreciate your support and look forward to bringing you more exciting and informative videos in the future. If you have any questions, suggestions, or ideas for our next video, please leave them in the comments below. Until then, take care and have a fantastic day.